Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the show Talks with Dasha, where we take a deep dive into the world of tech news, startups, innovation, and venture capital. As your host, I'll be your guide on this exciting journey. Together, we'll uncover the latest trends, explore groundbreaking ideas, and interview industry leaders. My name is Dasha. Let's get started. So, the topic of our discussion today is from job search to promotion, mastering your career journey with confidence and force. It's our very first episode, and I'm thrilled to have Bhavana Smith as our special guest speaker. So, Bhavana is the founder of Until There Are Nine, an educational network and resource group whose purpose is to give women the power to advocate for their rightful share of compensation and rewards. Hi, Bhavana. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dasha. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so my first question obviously would be like if you can make it a little bit easier to explain to our audience. So what is this until there are nine? So why your expertise is so important here. So what do you do? What is it? Networking, resource group? What is it? Tell us a little bit more.
Absolutely. So, Until There Are Nine, first, I'll just give a very quick story of the name and the meaning behind it. It
Yeah.
was inspired by U.S. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was often asked by reporters, "How many women when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court?" And she said, "When there are nine." And that's when we know we would have truly reached equity. So this is really a nod to her and an action oriented statement that we keep pursuing, pay and promotion equity for women until there are nine women on the Supreme Court. Right now that only
Oh,
exists
wow.
in the Barbie movie. So
Yeah, yeah.
but
That's
Until You're Nine was founded to specifically help women, actually women helping each other when it comes to negotiating their worth in the workforce. So whether it was to how do you ask for a raise or promotion, or how do you negotiate a compensation offer when you have when you're interviewing for a new role. And then also more recently, how do I negotiate, like what should I think about when I'm negotiating my exit package. So I'm certainly not the expert. I think of myself as more of the coordinator and the orchestra conductor of bringing together
mhm.
women that have gone through this experience and feel confident in their ability to navigate these kinds of conversations, and matching them up to women who say, I need help and I don't know, what's the best way to do this. Can someone, I just have a quick question, or I need help in this process. So Until There Are Nine really brings together, those women. And I call it intentional allyship. It is helping with a
I
specific
like it.
purpose.
Okay, but a little quick question. How did you find this problem? So, how did you see it? Was it something personal or like that your friend experienced? So, how did it all started?
No, that's a great question. It was very personal. And it was many years ago when I was, interviewing for a new role. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave any money on the table. And it was actually the first time that, I thought about how do I maximize the offer being made to me. So I got some advice. And rather than giving my number to the recruiter, when he asked me, so Bhavna, what's your number? What are you thinking? I really just simply said, well, what are you offering for the role? And I was given a range. And then I also got some advice along the way of how can I ask for the highest end of that range, because I felt greedy and, selfish for even thinking about it. But I did ask for the highest end of the range. And I was, given that as an offer. And I was just really surprised. And I was sharing this kind of play by play with a friend and a colleague of mine. And she was just kind of like, oh, that's really good. Save that for me when it's my turn. And that was really the idea behind it, that I saved the what I said and how I asked, and started to write things down. And when I started to write things down and, about thinking about the pay gap and how women can help close it, through my
hmm
research, I found that reluctance to negotiate and discrimination actually make up 40% of the pay gap. So women are paid, 84 cents on the dollar. Well, 40% of that is because of our own, because of something other than just something very quantitative like industry or occupation or the years of
hmm
experience, that it was really, within us, and then also the discrimination that we face because we ask.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So, you asked for a higher range and actually they agreed on that, right? So it was probably because I know how it feels, but when the recruiter looks at you and you feel like a little bit, like kind of pressure, like you feel pressure and you're like a little bit not comfortable saying like between, for example, 100 and 200. So you
Sure.
kind of tend to say the lower number, I don't know, automatically. But actually, so you face this fear and it works on you, right? So
Yes.
it worked for better. So that's amazing.
It did work for better. And, it's funny because I actually asked, how do I ask for the highest end of the range from a male friend of mine? And he was just kind of like, what do you mean? You just ask. Like he had no qualms about, why wouldn't you ask for the highest end of the range? So I just, kind of carefully, you know, um, wrote my email and I said, I would like, this end of the range. But I look forward to, hearing more about your total compensation. So saying that this is my expectation, but I'm also open to, total compensation, packages, because it's not just about the base, right? It's not just about the salary. It's about the bonus or the commission and other, benefits, whether they're financial or non-financial, that go with, is this a good offer or not?
Yeah, exactly. So, and I have one more question. Like in general, we're going to focus today on two main things. So, one is the job search. So, this is one problem, right? That a lot of people have, especially taken into account layoffs currently and so on. And another one is if you got stuck in the same position, yeah, for several years, how to get promoted, how to ask for higher salary, for higher benefits. But just want to quickly go back to this thing with you that you said that you just ask and that's it. But a lot of HRs, what they say is that you shouldn't ask for too much because you never know like what is the limit. And sometimes they advise you like not to ask too high, but make it a little bit lower. So what do you think about this strategy? So is it bad actually?
So I would, ask for the range, right?
Okay, first range. Mm-hmm.
First, don't ever give your number. And by the way, the fact that I didn't give my number and I asked for the range and got the highest end, it was 60% increase over my salary, because I think a lot of folks, especially women, tend to just add 20,000, 15,000, even 30,000 at the high end of their current base and and say that's my number. Whereas if I had done that, I would have left so much money on the table. So you really have
Exactly.
to ask for the range, but then also understand, how did they come up with that range? So obviously, if the range should be, I think no more than like a $75,000 range. So 100 to 150
Yeah.
is the ideal range to be given. And then the next question to ask is, well, how do you, quantify, like, how do you qualify for 100,000 versus 150,000? And what you really want to hear are quantification. So is it years of experience? Is it number of clients managed? Is it the type of revenue that you've brought in? Is it the team members that you've, kind of really supervised? Or is it just years of experience? So someone at 100,000, we're looking at, with 3 years of experience, and then, the range really goes up with years of experience and obviously, achieving, having good accomplishments in the role.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so okay, ask for the range first, then ask how do you qualify for that. Okay, amazing. So now let's go back to
Mm.
like to the first part of our discussion at the job search. We actually started talking about it already, but just let's do it from scratch. So, Bhavna, tell me please. So, for example, if I'm unemployed, I'm looking for a job. So, what are some effective job search strategies that can push your career forward? So, what do you start with? I don't know, website, platforms, any tips that you have. Maybe you should start from, some ordering things in your head. So, just what do you start with?
Sure. So there is no one best strategy. And I think for anyone who is, looking for a job right now, is probably doing anything and everything that they can. I think the best strategies is when you have multiple ways of, looking for a role. I think, in my opinion, networking is still the best strategy. And,
Mm-hmm.
so, always nurture those relationships, even especially when you have a job. don't just reach out to folks when you are unemployed. And, obviously you should. That's why we have a professional network. But absolutely just constantly network, stay in touch with former colleagues, former bosses, and clients or whoever you have worked with, and stay in touch with them throughout the course of your career and nurture those relationships. So when you are looking for a job, you are sending them a very thoughtful message of, hey, please keep me in mind for any roles that you may come across, that look like, A, B, or C. So doing multiple things is absolutely, important. The second thing I would say is, are there a target list of companies that you can come up with, whether it's 3, 5,
Mm-hmm.
10? And, if you are really, want to put in the time to do this, it is obviously going on their website and looking for the careers page and see what they have open. Do they have the option to submit your resume for when roles come up? Do you know people in your network that work at those companies? Or can you ask other people for introductions? So, I may not know someone who works at, if you want to work at Google, but hey, maybe, there's someone in my, network, or I may not work at Google, but there's someone in my network that you might,
Yeah, exactly.
and can I do an introduction for you? So, that's why networking and having those really good relationships matters, because they may not be able to give you a job, but they might know someone who can. And I have people reach out to me, I would say, all the time, whether it's on LinkedIn or email, people that I have worked with in the past. And, some I haven't spoken to in years, but they reach out to me when they're looking, and I'm happy to help them. Even if I don't, you know, I'm not personally hiring, or I'm not working at a
Yeah.
company that's hiring, but I will always file them away in my head. Right. And that may come to fruition in, in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months. Sometimes I've spoken to someone and the same day I've been able to pass their name along to somebody that I know in my network. So, but 5 to 10 companies, have a target list, work those connections, and have, multiple strategies. Obviously, job boards like, Indeed are important as well when you're looking for work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but a very maybe stupid question, but so is it okay to ask people to help you with job? Because sometimes people don't feel comfortable reaching out. Like, they don't want to show their weaknesses. So is it perfectly okay in the current business culture?
Yes, of course. I think especially now in the current business culture, there is so much outpouring of support that I've seen on LinkedIn. When there are layoffs that are happening, everyone is saying, please reach out to me if I can help. If I can't help, is there someone in my network that I can connect you to? People are sharing job postings, just, in the hopes of expanding reach, and hopefully it'll get to the right person. So it is absolutely okay to ask. I think there's, like with anything else, it is how you ask, and maintaining, some professionalism. And, again, my approach has been, and I wanted to, get to something, because you have to be very clear and, help the person understand, what is the ideal role for you, and just make them aware. So if they hear of something, they can keep you in mind, or send them your resume, and they can pass it along to anyone else. But I think before you even start your job search, can we go into that for a minute, Dasha?
Sure.
It would be really helpful, because I think the searching part is, although it's daunting, I think the real work comes before you actually start to, start to go online and start to reach out to people, because you have to ask yourself, if you are working and you want to leave, I think you really have to ask yourself, why is it that you are
Mm-hmm.
to leave? Because 48% of women, almost half of women, leave a job in order to get promoted, right? And I know we're going to talk about, a stalled career advancement, but really ask yourself, are there things about this current job that if I could just fix it, or if somebody knew, you really you owe it to yourself, and frankly also to your manager and to the company, to try to fix, what you think is broken. And if you're definitely looking to leave, then there's no downside to trying to have that conversation and practicing, of how do you have this very uncomfortable conversation. And are there things that you can do to fix it? So is it is it your workload, or is it, not having, enough team members, or is it the type of client or another different type of experience that you want? The other thing that you should really do, unemployed or employed, looking for a new role, is really sit down and do some introspection as to what is my ideal role, right? So whether it's in a year from now or whether it's now, what am I doing? Do I have responsibilities for a specific client? Do I have responsibilities for an entire team or across the company? Ask yourself, when I was working, I am happiest when, and really start to think about a very specific time when you were working, and when were you happiest? Like, you were really happy. What was it? Did you finish something by yourself and then you got to present it? Were you working with a team of people and it was a lot of collaboration happening? Were you doing some analysis and you kind of figured something out? Were you working with a team? Were you working by yourself? Were you indoors? Were you in the office? Were you home? All of these things matter. And then you start to write down some of the attributes of the role that you are looking for that make you happy, and what were you doing? And then you can start to really articulate, a couple of bullet points or a couple of sentences. So then you can actually take that to the people that you want help from. Hey, I'm looking
Yeah.
for a role that allows me to do this. And then also, most importantly, while that's future looking, you do have to think about, in the past, write down your accomplishments, not your responsibilities. Not, I was responsible for, managing a team. You really want to be
Hmm.
very quantify your accomplishments, where you managed a team of 10 people, and you were able to mentor and advance them to additional roles. So really talk about what you are proudest of, so because you will need that when you actually get to the interview stage of the process.
Thank you so much. Now, this is a very, very helpful tip, especially about being true to yourself. You need to understand what do you want, right? And what is it that you're good at? Because this is very crucial, especially for your happiness and for advancing your career in the future. I totally agree with you. But another question. So while applying for jobs, a lot of people ask, should you customize your CV according to every job opening? Because a lot of people complain that they waste like a great number of time, of hours, like being editing CVs. So what do you suggest here?
So I will tell you what I've heard, that same advice. I think I have done that maybe once in my career. Otherwise, I have never customized my CV or resume. And, did it hurt me? I'm not really sure, right? I can't speak to something that I didn't do, but it makes sense. And I think now, if, you're even like a little bit tech savvy and you can go into Chat GPT and,
For sure.
give it some prompts for, here's a job description, can you, write a few lines for a resume that would align to that. And, you should be able to copy and paste it. So I think it'd be a lot easier now. Obviously, if you are looking at very different roles, so I'll give you a personal example. I have always, my background is in advertising agencies, and I have, did that for 15 years. And then when, if I'm looking for a role and for example, I wanted to get into, brand side marketing, I would really have to think about, like, my agency resume wouldn't work. I would really
Hmm.
have to think about what I have done, my accomplishments, that would actually align with a brand side marketing role. So I think it also depends on how different of a role you're really going after. I feel like now in my career, my skills are fairly transferable. So I grew up in the agency business, and at some point, I didn't want to do like the actual work. I wanted to manage the team. I wanted to manage the business. I wanted to do more operational or COO type roles rather than agency roles. And I think, my resume has to reflect that if that's where I wanted to go.
Yeah, makes sense. And I definitely agree with you that right now we have so many useful tools that can help us as ChatGPT and others. And I think there is actually nothing wrong in using it, right? Unless you do not copy paste everything, but asking, for rephrasing something or helping you to do this routine work, I guess it's really perfect. I think it makes our life so much easier.
Yep.
Thank you, Bhavna. And if we go to the part with the interview itself, so how can you prepare for a job interview to maximize your chances of success? Like,
Sure.
are there any special tips?
So I'll share with you. So, remember before you ever start looking for a job,
Mm-hmm.
you really want to write down your accomplishments. And these should be really, tight, list of accomplishments, 3, 5, 7, whatever it is, depending on how long you've been in the workforce. And you want to be able to quantify, whether, and my rule of thumb is there should be a dollar sign, a percent sign, or a number sign next to a few of those accomplishments, right? You can't just say
Mm-hmm.
I helped, I contributed to client work that helped, grow revenue. Well, by how much? Or we worked on a team and it was great, collaborative, things like that. It's like, no, it has to be very specific. How does it actually distinguish you from your peer set, right? And it can't just be a kind of relisting your job responsibilities. So you want to be able to talk about the accomplishments that you have had in the past, and then how will you bring those accomplishments to the role that you are interviewing for, right? So you really have to know the company, and you have to be able to tell the story of, hey, I have done, again, personal example, I spent 15 years on the agency side. I transitioned into consulting, where I learned more about the business side of agency management and, client, KPIs for success. And then I parlayed that into, going back into the agency world, where and I feel like now is the right time because I have all of that experience, and now I'm ready to take it to the next level and actually apply that experience. So you have to really talk about what you have done in the past, and and how that has led you to the role that you are interviewing for, and why it's the right next step for you. And the other thing you have to be ready for, yes, I guess I've been in the workforce for so long, the questions of what's your greatest strength and what's your greatest weakness, if
Yeah,
people still ask that, okay, just be ready to, prepare for those questions. I am ready for the one question that often gets asked in an interview, whether it's in person or in Zoom, is tell me about yourself. And it's a very simple question. So you really want to think about, one, your audience, right? Who will you be speaking to? What do you think? Do you know anything about them? And how will you start your story when someone says, tell me about yourself? Are you going
exactly.
to talk about your personal first? Is that what you want to put? Hey, I'm a mom of a teenager. I have 2 dogs. I like these things. Or, you know, are you really going to talk about your professional background? So I, again, once had an interview where I found out that the person who was going to be interviewing me was was a storyteller, and he was a very expressive storyteller. And I wanted to have a story ready about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be able to convey the type of person that I am, even though this was a story about me when I was 5 years old. And I actually closed with that story, and it went over really well because it conveyed to this person that, hey, I have been, resourceful and, kind of astute since I was 5 years old, because the story was that I was lost. My school put me on a school bus when my mom was supposed to pick me up, and I found my way home at 5 years old in a brand new country. So
Great job.
it was, again, it was my way of conveying, like, that's the kind of person that I am. Like, I figure it out, like, I'm not scared, and that's who I am. And, I think it impressed them. But that was the kind of story I wanted to kind of match, that kind of storyteller experience. So, again, if you can find a little bit out about the person who's interviewing you and the type of questions they ask, and, who you think they are, then that would be really good.
Yeah, this is super interesting. So you should think like storytelling is not important only for startups when they pitch, right? So storytelling is also very helpful here. But so finding the right balance between personal and professional, should it be really a balance or should you go like deeper into one or other side?
I think it really depends. I mean, you're there for an interview, so I would say you really want to lean more towards the professional side. But if there are personal things that you want to put in there about what you love to do, but frankly, um, it's a personal thing. Obviously, you don't want to give away, too much because it's also, just know the laws that you have in your state of, what are, interviewing questions that are illegal to ask. So they can't ask for your age, they can't ask for, your kids or
Yeah.
marital status, so things like that. So, but again, it's up to you. Obviously, like I'm saying, hey, I'm a mom, I have a teenager, and I think it's becoming more and more okay to share more about your personal selves during the process.
Hmm. Should you include your picture to the CV when you submit for a specific job role?
That's a good question. I think I don't know. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Honestly, it depends on, what are your reasons for doing so. I have personally included the pronunciation of my name on my resume.
Sometimes it's important. Yeah.
I mean, the way it's spelled and the way it's pronounced are very different. So I just thought about what may be an obstacle to someone, kind of looking at my resume or passing it over. And is it just too complicated to call me and
Exactly.
for an interview if they don't know how to pronounce my name? So I've included the pronunciation. I know a lot of companies who are hiring actually try to take out all personal information, so, and they give blinded resumes to the hiring managers to remove any, any bias. So,
Hmm.
removing names, removing addresses, or places where people live, and certainly pictures would get rid of that any bias. And hopefully, the hiring manager is looking at the qualifications.
Yeah, yeah. Because the reason I asked it, because it's a very big difference between, for example, European world and North America. Because here, like typically, yes, everyone says do not include a picture. While in Europe, it's very common. So sometimes people, especially those who immigrated or who had to relocate because of their job, they really get confused, right? So yeah, it's really interesting. So probably, yeah, the answer is like likely no, yeah, if there is a tendency to hide all the like personal details.
Sure.
So maybe that would be not needed. And also one step back, because we started talking about interview, but what I hear from many people, friends of mine, ex-colleagues, that they say I apply for so many jobs but I don't get it to the interview. What do you do in this case? Are there any, I don't know, special things you can do, put to your cover letter, I don't know, write in your CV to get this first job interview?
So I, know people very close to me, and it took a very long time, and I read about this on LinkedIn almost every day, hundreds of, resumes sent, interviews, and, they do 6, 7 rounds of interviews and then nothing happens. So I honestly don't know. I think there's like a broken system somewhere, where either there's just too much demand, or too much supply, frankly, for the jobs that are available. But I think, companies absolutely need to do a better job of, giving some response and closure to candidates, because they have to lead with a little bit more empathy when it comes to people who are in the, doing their job search. So, I don't have any like specific
Yeah, for
strategy
sure.
other than you just have to be, patient and resilient. And, things can happen very quickly. Um, but I know, again, for people who are, looking for roles, there's, reaching out to recruiters, reaching out to people in your network, the more personal connection that you can, rely on for your job search, the better, because at least you can like talk to somebody, someone who works in the company, or you've, had a conversation with the recruiter, whether they're external or internal within the company. So I think having a person to talk to can certainly be more helpful. But in the world of just, job boards and, applying online, and,
Yeah.
especially on LinkedIn, and I don't think I've gotten maybe one or two emails in the last couple of years if I've applied for a role. And other than that, you just hear nothing back. So
Exactly.
it is like, overwhelming, and sad
For
that
sure.
people have, like, so many people are going through this experience. But I think that's really one on companies to do better,
Yeah.
and be more responsive. I mean, if they have tools and technology to scan resumes, then
Yeah.
they have to have tools and technology to, give a response.
Yeah, because I always think that it's better to hear no than nothing. Yeah, because at least you know for sure that if you were considering this role, so you've heard no, you know that okay, this is no. Yeah, so you can go forward while like rather than waiting for nothing, you know, when you don't know, like you've applied to these 10 jobs and you don't hear anything back. So this is really frustrating. This is annoying, that's for sure. Okay, and so now going back again to the job interview itself, let's maybe define three most popular interview questions that you have to be ready for, that are very, I would say, traditional, that you always hear.
Well, I think the first one is certainly, tell me about yourself.
Yes, here we have storytelling to help us.
Yep. And I think, be ready for why this role and this company, right? You
Hmm.
have to go in fully prepared for, again, if you've done the homework, before you ever start, of, your accomplishments, and then also you are very clear in what you are looking for in your next role. You should be able to easily articulate that in the interview, whether you're speaking to the recruiter or whether to the CEO. But that, they do need to understand that you are interested in them, just as much as you want them to be interested in you, and, having done your homework. So tell me about yourself, why this role, and, why this company, I think the basics of what you should be prepared for, going in.
Hmm. Also, I think a very typical question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Yeah.
So sometimes people say like, oh my God, I have no idea. So I don't know. I'm just like, I
Yeah.
just started with this company. So what is the best like option to answer this question?
So actually, that's it's funny you asked that, because I used to hate that question. I
Yeah.
see myself, retired on a beach, and not having to work is really the
That's
answer.
for sure.
Yeah. But and it wasn't until, many years ago, where I was going through a leadership program, and they asked me to think about that question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So my perception of that question changed significantly when I did the work. And the work was, in 5 years, think about what, where you are professionally. What's the role that you have? Write down the title. Where do you work? The type of companies. Again, for me, was it the agency side? Was it client side? Was it consulting side? And what are your responsibilities? Like, what are some of the things that, you expect to be doing? So it's almost like, create the job description you expect to have in 5 years. And
Hmm.
and you really take that, and then think about, now work, come back to today, and what are the steps that you need to take between today and the next 5 years to get to that, to get to that goal. Do you need to work on certain types of projects? Do you need to work on certain types of clients or industries? Do you need some classes or training or certifications to get to that type of, role? But that question, I think about it so differently now, as one of the most helpful questions you can ask yourself, and
Hmm.
the most
For yourself personally, right?
for yourself personally. But then being able to share that with, whether you're talking to your manager in your current role, or whether you are talking to someone for an interview, that in 5 years I expect to be doing, this type of role, and these are my responsibilities. And so what I am looking for a role that allows me to get to that, to get to there. Because we all know every job and every role is temporary, right?
That's
Most
for
jobs
sure.
are stepping stones to something better. And again, if you are an ambitious person, then you know the job that you are in now is a temporary one, but you really have to ask yourself, is it helping me to get to where I want to be in 5 years? Am I working on projects, or am I doing other things that are keeping me so busy? Or those all, furthering my, career aspirations of where I want to be in 5 years? So actually, it's a really helpful question to ask yourself.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. I haven't thought of that from this way, but this is like something that I'll keep in mind. But also, one more. Can you be a little bit like arrogant here? For example, I give you an example. So if you have an interview with, I would say, I don't know, vice president or something, and you like obviously you're like some level behind, and you say, yeah, like in 5 years, I see myself like on your position. Is it okay to say like that, or would it scare the person?
Sure. So, I mean, if they're going to be, it might scare the person, but how secure is that
I'm
person?
not gonna hire you, man.
Well, if you're a few years, if you're a few years, behind, or a few levels below the vice president, they're not going to be intimidated. They're going to look for someone who has those types of, ambitions. I've had people who reported into me, in existing roles, and said they wanted my job. And I said, great, because, you know, I'm not meant to be in this role, for the rest of my life, and neither are you. So, I would hope that managers are looking to develop successors, right? They're not threatened, they're not intimidated, but part of your role as a manager is to actually develop successors into your role,
Yeah,
right?
to
That's
grow people, help them grow. Yeah.
exactly. So I don't know if it's, I don't think it's necessarily arrogant, but if that's your 5-year goal, that you want to be, you don't have to say, I want your job. You can say, I want the responsibilities that come with, being a vice president, and I want things that look like this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Bhavna. And so when we were talking about the salary range, right? So
Mhm.
we have discussed that if you're applying for a new job, you can ask for the range. Then you can ask like, how do I qualify for the high range? But what if we're talking about existing career, right? Many individuals find themselves in a typical situation, working for like 3, 5 years with little to no changes. So how can you proactively pursue career advancement here, including high salaries and benefits? So what can you do?
Sure. So if you've been in a role, so just so I understand the question, you've been in a role and you
Correct.
haven't had a lot of growth. So no promotion,
Yeah.
or no raise or something like that. Yeah, it's definitely time to kind of really be, introspective and think about, why is that happening? Are there other people around you that are getting promoted? What has your, performance evaluations, what have they, how have they been over the last couple of years? But I think, if you're doing a good job, what's the kind of feedback that you're getting? And, I was just reading that women actually tend to get less actionable feedback than men. So I think, especially if you're a woman, really, kind of think about the kind of feedback that you have gotten. But regardless, let's start from the beginning. If you're in a role and you haven't moved, first thing I want you to do is I want you to look at the goals that you set for yourself, that you have discussed with your manager. And I want you to start to think about and talk to your manager about setting goals that matter, right? So every company has goals that should trickle down to the individual level. And,
Yeah.
okay, you're writing your goals down and you have your own professional goals. What you want to talk to your manager about is, are these the goals that will get me promoted? Or are these just things that I'm like, need to get done by the end of the year? Are they projects, or are they actual goals that will help, be the stepping stone for the next level up? If you have a job description for the next level above you, take a look at that and, think about how you can use those responsibilities to set the right goals for you, right? So let's say you have a manager that doesn't give you goals, whatever it is, are you able to actually, access or download the job description for the level above and look at those, look at the role description and set the goals that matter and make sure that they are, again, important because they should matter to the business. They should matter to the company, not just to
Mm-hmm.
your manager that, they're giving you really good advice. So for example, are you setting goals that are, helping a company save money or make money? That's what
Yeah.
it comes down to, for most businesses. How are you able to contribute some, quantifiable value to the company? So especially if you're a woman, do you have take on some P&L responsibility early on in your career? Because when you have P&L responsibility and you're managing, a business and able to deliver the work, that's what's really going to help you, advance further. So set goals that matter and ask your manager, are these the goals that will get me promoted? If that's part of your plan, then, what we've talked about, but I'll just say it differently, is you have to recognize and be able to articulate your worth. So writing down your accomplishments, putting a dollar sign, percent sign, or a number sign next to a few of those. How are they differentiated versus your, peer set? So if you are in a, in a group and you have, 5 other people at your level, you have to be a little competitive and say, how am I going above and beyond, not just what I am supposed to deliver against my goals, but against what others are doing? How do I get to stand out? And then being able to articulate that, writing your business case for before your promotions, before performance evaluations are due. Make sure you are able to articulate your contributions in that role and how you've been able to quantify those. And then also, if you work in a big company, do you have a sponsor? So someone who is many levels above you. So again, using that vice president example, a vice
Mm-hmm.
president who sees how amazing you are and how you are like, you're on a fast track to becoming vice president in a few years. Can they help identify opportunities, projects for you to work on that will get you noticed and give you higher visibility in the organization? But you have to be really good. You can't just,
That's true.
phone it in. If the vice president is, someone who is giving you these opportunities, you have to be really good at your job and make them look good, right? So that's what a sponsor relationship looks like. And then also know who's in the room, who is making promotion decisions. So if you are stalled in your career growth, one really, and your manager isn't giving you good feedback, go find feedback from somewhere else. And also find out who's in the room when they're making promotion decisions. Do you know those people? Do they know how great you are? Do they know your value contributions? And you really have to go on your own, almost like PR campaign throughout the year
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that your accomplishments are known by the people who are making those decisions. And sometimes it's not only your manager. Sometimes those decisions are bigger than your manager. So get to know who's on your, what I call like the board of influence almost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it looks like you have to take a lot of action. So I understand now that many people they get stuck because they just do not, maybe not that they don't want, but they're just not ready, because you have to be really proactive. You have to know like all the people who make decisions. You have to ask, right? You have to constantly discuss your goals. So it's not as easy. So you really have to do a lot of work. But also, like, if I understand, for example, that I'm so good, I see that all the goals, they're like excellent, that I have like advanced my career, everything is going so great. I'm really helpful to the company. I go to my manager, I speak to him, and he tells me, like, listen, we just do not have any job openings and we don't have any budget. So sorry, no higher salary for you, no promotion. What do you do in this situation? That's why 48% of women leave to get
Yep.
promoted. Is this the reason?
So, I mean, there's many reasons women leave to get promoted, but I think if you are doing everything right and they're telling you that there are no open roles, sometimes that is the reality of that business. right? There has to be
Hmm.
an open spot for you to occupy to get promoted. And in many companies, that's how it works. But obviously, if there are open roles and you have to say, I'm interested in filling that open role, I'd like to put my, name under consideration, and then it's not happening, or you're getting very, just kind of iffy feedback, you have to really push your manager or others for specific feedback that you can action on. And
Hmm.
I think the company also owes it to every employee to have a very clear path to promotion. What
That's
are
true.
what are the roles and requirements that are necessary for your role and for the role above you and above them and above them? So, you can be doing everything right, but you have to, you really have to press more. And sometimes that's the reality. Yep, there are no open roles. Um, and when there is one, we will, certainly, put you in that role.
Yeah, but I think you said a very important thing that companies have also to be clear, because right now what I see that it's really hard to understand what is needed. It's really hard to understand what actions do you need to take because you just don't understand. You don't understand what are the next level, what are their opportunities, and that's really frustrating and annoying for people. So when it's clear, obviously it's so much better. And also, one more thing. So, if you tried everything and it's still not working, so no one wants to get you promoted, then you leave. So, what's better? I know it's very personal and probably depends, but what's better to keep pushing here because you want your stability, you have kids to feed, and you have rent to pay, or to quit and to jump into new adventure? But again, you don't know who will hire you and will anyone hire you. So, what do you choose?
I think you owe it to yourself to do both and at the same time. If you feel like you should absolutely try within your current company, because, again, if you don't have a clear answer, if someone hasn't said no as yet and given you, specific reasons, then you should really look for those reasons and try to understand, what is holding you back. Because if it's been a long time and you're not getting promoted and others are, then
Mm-hmm.
someone isn't giving you clear, actionable feedback. And you really have to ask, or ask somebody else, someone in your, someone else outside the company, about what is it that you think, because it's really, you want to understand. So it's important, but at the same time, you want to, if you get the answer that you're not hoping for, you do want to be able to, you want to be ready. So start networking, start, getting your resume ready, start thinking about your ideal role, your past accomplishments, and certainly try within your current company. If it doesn't work, at least you tried, and now you have experience having that
Yeah.
conversation, right? So much of this is just practice. Just practice having the conversation that's really uncomfortable and awkward. But you have to have it if you want to be successful in your career. You can't just, sit back and complain and not do anything about it. But you can do both things at the same time, and you probably should, because you need leverage. And if you don't
Yeah.
have backup option, you don't have another alternative, then you don't have much leverage.
Yeah, I think this is a very smart strategy that you don't have to wait. You probably need to target both options. And yeah, I have two more questions. So one more is again, so I also heard about the situation when an employee asks like, what are my options here in the company, right? So where can I grow to? What are the options from this role? And the manager just said, well, I don't see it. I don't know. So what do you do in this case? Should you like create something for yourself and say, okay, listen, you don't know, but maybe we can open this job opening, or what I can do is to create this program, or like what are your next steps here?
So first is certainly understanding why my manager thinks that they don't see a career growth for me in this current role, and that might be, their opinion, or that might be, everyone's opinion in the department. But not everyone is right for the role that they're currently in, and that's okay. as long as the company recognizes that, your skills and strengths are actually a better fit for a different role or in a different department.
Yeah, that's important
We
too.
don't we don't just, say, well, this person doesn't really, you know, they're not doing well in this role, so let's put them on a performance plan and let's get them out of here. It's like, no, but they're really good at something, right? Like, what are they good at? And are they a better fit for somewhere else? So I've had many, people who, I've worked with and on my team, and you kind of have to recognize, yep, they're not the best at, client facing. Like,
Hmm.
they're not great with clients. They're shy, or they're,
Yeah.
not great speakers or presenters, but they're really smart and they know what they're talking about. So, and, but we're evaluating them and, against a benchmark that they're never going to, hit. And that's not really fair on them either, right? Because maybe they don't have any, aspirations to be client facing or be, in front of an audience. They like
Hmm.
doing the work and then just having their heads down. So are there subject matter expert roles, and that you can create, a company can create a career track, right? Like, your career track is, you are a subject matter expert, and there is another career track that is really about, market leadership or client leadership, where you are responsible for the business or people and clients. So let people, find their comfort zone, but you have to be able to create, a career opportunity for those types of people. Not everyone's going to be the same.
Yeah. No, that this is so true, definitely. And if we're talking about getting promoted in terms of benefits or salary, personally, what would you choose? Higher salary or better benefits?
Personally, I would choose higher salary.
So cash is the key, right?
Yep, cash is king. And I think, depending on the company or the industry that you're in, the base more so than the bonus, right? Because the base is guaranteed and it's
For
reliable and
sure.
it's, every other week. And it also depends on, I hate to bring personal things into it, but I am, a single income household. So that base is important for me, and I need it to, kind of like budget and pay my bills rather than rely
Of
on a
course.
bonus that, frankly, may or may not happen, right? Because the company is not doing well or whatever it is. Plus, your base is actually the base that you want to use for future job opportunities. So, if you take the lower base, then, but your total comp is great. So it really depends on your priorities.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Bhavna. So today we talked a lot about job search strategies. So we clearly understand that we have to be true to ourselves, that we have to ask about the pay range first, that we have to ask how can we do better? How do we qualify for a better price range? If we got stuck, we should definitely be honest and start these uncomfortable conversations with your manager, being proactive and think where we can grow. Yeah. So we shouldn't sit at one place. We should be our own PR managers. And maybe finalizing the whole this brilliant conversation, I like to ask you, so if you struggle with job search or if you struggle with getting promoted, is there a moment when you should actually say, listen, I just need to start my own business. I don't want to work for someone. When do you get to this place? And is it actually better?
So that's also a very personal decision. And I can, I always wanted to start my own business, but many, many years ago. I think my advice that I've given to my own daughter and my nieces is, the as soon as you can start your own business, do it. So, you
Mm-hmm.
get out of college, you go, go work, go get paid to learn. And you should think about jobs in that way, especially when you're young, is go get paid to actually still think about it that way. If I can get paid to learn how to do something, that's even better, and so if you have those opportunities, learn as much as you can. And just when you think, you are like on the edge of being ready to start your own business, go ahead and do it, because it is, more freedom, more flexibility, and, control over your own life and lifestyle.
Yeah, so you can always consider this option as well, right? So
Yes.
if nothing works, just don't be scared. You can also think about something for yourself. Okay, so thank you so much, Bhavna. So this is really, really amazing. So I think all your tips are very practical and useful, and I encourage everyone who is interested to visit your website until there are 9 and to learn more. As far as I remember, you do have more tips there available for everyone for free. Am I right?
Yes, we have a playbook that you can access, and it's free.
Yeah, so if you struggle with something, don't hesitate and visit their website. So thank you so much, Bhavna. Have a wonderful day. And for everyone, the recording will be also available on my LinkedIn. Thank you so much. It was Talks with Dasha, and see you in our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.